Talkshow, bringing you interviews with Reiki wisdom holders and stories of hope and healing from around the world. I'm your host, Stephen Vandiver. The focus on Reiki is to spotlight one of the world's fastest growing self-care, spiritual, and personal development tools. Everyone can learn this calming, relaxing, and healing technique and channel universal life force energy. As we come to know that our universe and everything around us, including our physical bodies, is made entirely of energy, learning to effectively work with this energy is key. Reiki is a priceless addition to your personal spiritual development toolbox. Our guest tonight is Dawn Fleming. She's an energy expert and catalyst for change, working in the field for over 25 years as an Usui and Karuna Reiki master, medical intuitive, soul coach, ordained minister, teacher, and author. Dawn has helped many people heal, move forward, live their truth, and celebrate their life. She's dedicated her life's work to healing and embracing higher consciousness through energy methods, meditation, prayer, and alchemical tools and processes. Dawn has a thriving Reiki business, providing healing to her clients both in person and at a distance around the world. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Dawn.
Well, thank you for having me, Stephen.
Absolutely. Now, I love to start with how your journey started, and I read a story on your on your website, which is linked right here. It started around 8 years old. Can you start there?
Sure. When I was 8 years old, I'd find myself staring in the bathroom window, looking for my real self. And I wasn't even sure what I was looking for because I would pinch myself and say, this just can't be the real me. And now I understand I was like looking for my God self, that divine perfection. And I just feel like I maybe was lost and was looking for that light. And I would just stand there and stare, like looking for it, like it was going to show itself to me. But having 6 people in the house and 1 bathroom, you really didn't have a lot of long time to stare in the mirror. So I think before I hit where I wanted to be, someone would be banging on the door and say, "Are you staring in that mirror again? Would you get out of there?"
That's great. So how did that progress? How did that bloom as you move forward?
I always kept looking for that deeper self. I was like wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but I knew it wasn't on this physical plane. And that, I guess, being a Pisces, I think you're automatically plugged in a way. So I was plugged in, but didn't know how to access it at the time. So, it wasn't until my early 20s when I actually had spirits come into my bedroom at night and stand next to me, and all different kinds, that I realized, all right, that's a connection to the other realm, not that I was seeking that. And it happened like for many nights. And I finally, after a couple months, went to see someone because it was all different people showing up. And they told me this person that helped me, and this was back in the early 80s. And she looked at me and she said, "You're a reader and a healer." And she asked me to read for her. And I'm like, "I'm coming to you to ask why these spirits are standing next to me when I'm trying to sleep." And she explained to me that they were lost souls and they were looking for the light, and I was to pray with them and help them move to the light. Wow. And so that was my big opening of like, wow, we're more than just this. And there are many realms, and that was my big introduction to like the spiritual side of things.
Now, what did the spirits look like? Do they look like what we see in the movies, or?
Yeah, they look like people. They look like people. I had men, women, children.
And they were just like a bunch of people standing next to your bed. Maybe you didn't know they were spirits right away.
Well, I figured they were spirits because I didn't invite anybody in there. And what was interesting is that my ex-husband at the time, I was married to my first husband, he could see them as well. And, he's always wondering, well, why are they standing next to you all the time? Why are they standing right here looking at you? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to sleep.
Wow. So fast forward a little bit. How did you come about Reiki? How were you introduced to Reiki?
In 1988-ish, my daughter had been diagnosed with a cataract on her eye, and we went through eye surgery. And for cataracts block your vision, and then you don't use your muscle, and the muscle gets lazy. And so after they did the surgery, her eyesight was 2400, and their solution was to patch the good eye, and then you use the muscle. And the doctor said, it'll get better really quickly. Don't worry. I'm like, well, I'm kind of concerned because my daughter's walking around with, 2400 vision. And, but it didn't get better. It wasn't getting better. And the doctor was getting concerned. And at the time I worked at the National Security Agency, and there were some people there, and they said, can we work on your daughter? And I'm like, well, what does that mean? What do you do that you're going to work on her? And some of them did chakra balancing and some did Reiki. And they were looking for bodies to work on. This is the late 80s. Nobody talked about Reiki. And I was like, does it hurt? They're like, no. I'm like, well, sure. Go at it. And so they began working on her in person and from a distance. And we were going to the eye doctor every 2 months. And at her next appointment, the eye doctor said, oh my God, it's working, it's improving. And so after a couple appointments of it continuing to improve, I said, I need to learn this myself. And just began, at first I took some chakra balancing courses, and I found that they made something that was so elegant and easy into something very complicated. And so a friend of mine said, oh, you need to take Reiki. You will be blown away. And so in 1993, I took Reiki 1, and later that year, Reiki 2. And then in 96, completed my Reiki master training. And, it's very, for me, it was life-changing because I worked as a government employee, as a senior intelligence research analyst. And I thought my life path was to move up, up the chain in that pathway of my job. And after taking Reiki, it was like, this is what I'm to do. And I'm not sure what I'm to do with it, but I really felt like it was my life's calling. And after like 2 years, I already had people coming as clients in the evening. And after the 2-year point, I'm like, I have to figure out how I can leave this government job that's supporting me into having Reiki, something that I love to do and love seeing the results. How can this support me so I can do more of it?
Right. Now, you were at the NSA for quite some time. I mean, you had already moved up the ladder a bit, right? You were on the same floor as the director, I believe?
Yeah, for about 8 years, I worked as a senior policy officer. And I worked on the 8th floor, which was the same floor as the director, the lawyers, the planners, the policymakers. Yes. So I ended up, I was there for 20 years before I left. And a lot of people would say to me, nobody leaves that kind of a job. And I'm like, and people ask me, did you retire? And I'm like, no, I resigned. I left. I was too young to retire. And they kind of look at me like, why would you leave this job that would support you so well? And I said, because I love Reiki and I love what I'm doing.
Wow. That's great. Now, so you were working at the NSA, and then you were also seeing clients in your Reiki room at your home, right?
Yes, yes.
Where were most of your clients coming from?
Well, what was interesting was because NSA was so stressful, a lot of my clients were from there. They were stressed out. They had health issues because of all the stress, or they just wanted a way to let go of the stress. And so a lot of the clients came from there. And then as I knew that this is something I wanted to grow so that I could leave that job, I just began telling everybody that I knew that I did it, whether they looked at me as if I had 3 heads, or if they looked at me in interest, then I would share more.
Yeah, that's great. And now this was right around 2001. So did 9/11 play a role here in this whole story?
Yeah, earlier in the year, my husband said he was just feeling good about where we were in life. And he's like, well, if you want to go quit your job and move into Reiki full time, you can. And that was the beginning of the year. And I'm like, I'd like to, but I wasn't there yet. And so all year long, I was thinking about it. And then 9/11 hit, and I just saw how the energy had shifted at work in a very negative way. And I just felt like that kind of showed me like I really didn't resonate being there anymore. And so it was like that catalyst that nudged me out. It was like, all right, I don't like all this toxicity here. I can make a better difference in the world by sharing Reiki, doing Reiki, and just being a light the way that I can be versus being in that environment and feeling very oppressed and suppressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, shortly thereafter, you moved to Arizona, and you started another Reiki business in Arizona, right? Yes.
In 2006, we moved to Arizona, and for the first year, we were in an apartment waiting for our home in Maryland to sell. So I really couldn't take Reiki clients in the apartment. So I began writing books based on all the experience that I had on running a Reiki business, on teaching workshops. And so I had a whole year sitting in front of the computer and just typing away. And then when we were able to move into our home in 2007, I could set up my Reiki space again. And it really was building a business all over again.
Yeah. Now, and speaking of building a business, you've written several books, and you do have a recent book out.
Yes. Start, grow, and expand your holistic health business.
Yeah. So how did you get into writing?
Well, in the government, I did a lot of writing, and I loved writing. And before I moved, I put together a workshop called Creating a Successful Holistic Health Practice. And so when I moved and had that year when I couldn't really take clients in my house, I thought, well, why don't I take all my notes from my workshop and put it into a book? And so the first book was called Creating a Successful Holistic Health Practice. And then about a year and a half ago, I decided it was time with social media, from 2006 to this era, there was a lot more that needed to be added to the book. So I rewrote it to reflect more of today's times, and also changing the wording from practice to a business, because it is a practice, but the bottom line is if you're doing this to support you for a living, it's a business, and it has to be run as a business.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how do you combine, business and spirituality? This is a tough thing that many people struggle with.
It really, spirituality should be in everything that we do. And so I don't see the struggle. I know some people struggle with, oh, I can't charge money for this. Well, everybody else that you need services from charge money for. And their talents and skills are a gift, as well as being good at Reiki is a gift. So that, to me, that's just like a psychological psyche thing. We need to move on from, because if this is something you're really pursuing doing for a living, then it really needs to be treated as a business to be successful, not something you're dabbling in or a little hobby. Really has to be like, all right, this is a business. So how do I do business?
Yeah. Now, what was the toughest thing for you personally to learn about the Reiki business?
There may be several things, but one was healthy boundaries, because people then see you as having their answers, and also they're feeling your good vibrations and energy. So they want to be with you. They want to connect with you. And if you don't know what your boundaries are, then you don't know when people are crossing your boundaries. And being, growing a business, there's that place of pleasing and helping your clients, but then taking care of your time and space and energy. So, I'd have clients that would try to stay really long time. They liked hanging out, but I had things I had to do and other clients coming, and I needed a little break between there, and wouldn't get that break. So I'd have to learn ways of getting them to the door so that I could have those breaks. And, then there's like your schedule, and all of a sudden you're taking clients on weekends, and you need that weekend because maybe you're teaching the next weekend and you needed that weekend off. So it's really important to have clear boundaries so that you have a personal life as well, and that you also preserve and keep your energy at a high place.
I love it. Now, you're a medical intuitive. Has this always been there, or did it come to you? And what exactly is a medical intuitive?
Okay, so medical intuitives, there's a range, and I'll say it came to me through working with Reiki. And one of the things I would do is when I work, I had a hard time keeping my chattery mind quiet. So the way I did is I just focused my mind under my hands. And from doing that, I became very aware of the energy of that person. And then all of a sudden I could see the energy lines, and I could see holes in the field or areas where the energy was broken or fragmented. And so every time I would see something, I would look deeper and I would look deeper and see more and more. And so then I just worked with expanding that skill set. And so for me as a medical intuitive, I can find out where the energies are broken. Sometimes I see body parts. Sometimes the body will speak to me and give me messages. Sometimes their guides or angels will come in and give me messages. So it's like no two sessions are alike, because each person is different. And so I tend to get a lot of clients who have, I'll say, the mystery diseases, the ones where the doctors can't figure it out, what's going on with them. And then they tell them, oh, it's all in your head, kind of thing. And so medical intuitives usually can use their skill set to see what is or is not going on in the field that's creating this mysterious illness.
So this is really, and this is way beyond like biosyn scanning, where you can get real specific, and then you're able to provide a specific Reiki treatment regimen for them. Yeah.
Yeah, so after I do the medical intuitive assessment, I've also taken my skill set in repairing energy field beyond, what I learned in Reiki, but I use the whole toolbox and the whole skill set that I've developed in repairing broken energy lines, fragmented areas. Sometimes somebody may have something, I'll say, like a curse put on them. I've seen that occasionally. Someone has wished them ill will. And so it's like being able to use your Reiki toolbox to clear all that out. So after I do the assessment, then I go in there and do the repairs, and I'm taking notes the whole time because people want to know, what did you find? What went on? And I find one of the things I find that cause a lot of problems are when people have had car accidents. And what that does is it can just gently fragment the field, or it can blow the field up, or it can break some of the core energy lines. And so you're doing Reiki and it's feeding the body energy, but it hadn't necessarily repaired those lines. So the Reiki holds for a while, but it doesn't completely fix the problem. So I'll go in there and do the fixes and then fill it with Reiki to restore it back to where it needs to be.
That's beautiful. Can you share one or a couple of healing stories with your clients?
Recently, I've had like 3 people who said they had Crohn's disease, and one person had it from a very early age. All 3 of these had been in major car accidents. All the car accidents were from the rear. And one person had been rear-ended 3 times. And they were just tired of having Crohn's disease. One person had symptoms of Crohn's, but the doctor's like, we can't find it in the blood work, however they measure what Crohn's is. This person didn't have it in the testing, but had all the symptoms. And so after repairing the core lines and restoring the Reiki in those areas that had not had Reiki energy for so long, they are all now eating foods that they have not been able to eat. And they are not running to the bathroom all the time. They have their life back. Wow. And I've seen this also. I work with a lot of women with fertility issues, is that car accidents in the past can actually, if the energy is leaking out, that energy that needs to get to the reproductive system isn't there and is not holding there. So it creates fertility issues that the doctors then have to pump you with drugs. And most of those processes are only like 33% effective.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And that, you have clients with similar issues, and I assume they don't know each other.
They don't know each other. And it's funny how, I've had like a clump of Crohn's disease in the last 5 months. Or then I'll have a crop of fertility clients show up, or a crop of eye clients. So I like it when it happens like that, because you can see where their similarities are and learn from it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, getting right down to business, what's the biggest or what's the most important thing before starting your Reiki business? What would you give advice for?
You have to work on your inner self, because if you fear, oh my God, I'm not going to have money. If you're stuck in fear, you may as well not even get started. Because no matter how much energy you're putting out, your fear energy is taking away from the momentum that all the work you're doing. So I found that, that's a big challenge for a lot of people. So before you get started, be in your warrior, courageous self that knows that what you have is going to take you forward and be successful.
That's beautiful. And then what's the biggest mistake you see people make getting into a Reiki business?
Well, here's one I see over and over again. They'll come up to me and they'll say, look, I started my Reiki business. Here's my business card. Here, you can have one. And I'm like, well, what else have you done? Well, I made my card. Well, what's your marketing plan? How are you getting new clients? I made my card. So, it takes a lot more work and energy. I mean, your card is a good first step, but you really need to be networking and connecting as much as you can, not just having your card.
Now, the name of your business is Energy Transformations.
Yes.
The link is in the post here. How did you come about that name, and what advice would you give someone that is thinking of a name for their business?
Well, I just thought about, for my business, I had, before that, I didn't have a name before 2004. And so in 2004, I picked Energy Transformations because I just thought about how the Reiki energy transforms things, and how the healing comes through the transformation. And that's why I picked it. So you need to pick a name that people aren't going to think is too weird. And it's not that I'm prejudiced or anything, but if you get way too woo-woo, a lot of people that might be your clients may think, they may not connect because of a name. So pick a name that's easy to remember, because if you're going to do your website based on the name, you want it to be easy for people to remember so they can go find your website as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe even coordinating the name with an available website address.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Yeah. Now, in your book, Start, Grow, and Expand Your Holistic Health Business, you talk about business plans and marketing plans, and you touched on that briefly, but can you expand on that a little bit and the importance of that in getting into business?
Okay, so a business plan, if you go through that exercise of creating a business plan, it really helps you see the reality of how much money you're going to have to spend and all the different areas where you're going to have to give your attention to. Because a lot of people think a Reiki business is just doing Reiki, but it's not, especially if it's not in your home. If your business is not in your home, then you've got to rent space and maybe get some kind of city license or whatever to do business. So having a business plan shows you all the things that you're going to need to do to have a business. Also, if you're going to need a loan for your business, then the bank or whoever's going to loan you money most likely will want a business plan. So by sitting down and doing a plan, it really gives you a realistic picture of the overall picture of having a business and all the different elements of the business. And then a marketing plan, to me, I feel like when you're starting a business, it's really good to do it because it gives you an idea of how much money you're going to need in order to market what you have. And you could even have it in stages, but the thing is, if you want to make money, you've got to spend money. And a lot of people don't factor in marketing. And in today's arena, you need to spend some money on marketing.
Yeah, you need to spend money to be heard. Now, I know a lot, in fact, a lot of the guests that have been on Reiki Currents, they have their studio in their home, just like yourself, right?
Yes,
yeah.
My table's right behind me.
Yeah, I see the gong. And, what are the main reasons for that? I mean, the first thing I think of is that, well, you don't have to rent a space and it's in your home, and so that makes sense money-wise. But what are some of the other benefits of doing it in the home, or,
Well, you see the gong, and at first when we recently moved north up near Prescott, Arizona, and I looked at renting space, but then I thought if I rent space and I want to incorporate a sound healing in with the Reiki session, and I'm renting space that's attached to the walls of other offices, they're not going to take well to the sound of my gong, sending them into the ethers in the outer space. So with that, and the other thing is when you are in your own home and not being connected to the walls of other businesses, I more or less can manage the energy that's here more so than in a space that's shared and has other people's utilities and internet going through it. So in your home, you have that. Now, my husband and I both work from home, and we recently moved here in September. And 18 months before that, we had moved to another house, but we found out that our offices were on top of each other, and it really just was not working. So if you're going to have a home office, you really need a space that's separate from everything else going on in the house. And so when we decided that we had to move, which was, oh man, having to move twice in 2 years, we knew for sure exactly what we needed. So my healing space down here, it's a really large room. It has a workshop space, my computer space in my healing area, along with a restroom, but it's separate from everything else. So that my husband's work isn't interfering with mine, and my stuff with the sound and just with the energy moving and raising isn't impacting him as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, that's excellent information. I appreciate that. Now, talking about social media, because this is something you really hit on big in your book. Like you say, with the you started doing Reiki as a business before any of the social media stuff. And so, what has worked for you? What do you currently use? Social media wise.
Okay, so social media wise, I'll tell you some of the local things I've been using.
Okay.
That I think are really helpful. There's a website called nextdoor.com, and it connects you in with all the people in your community and the communities around you that have signed up for it. And they have an events page where you can list like classes or Reiki shares that are coming up. You get to introduce yourself to your community when you join, and you can start conversations on different topics. And so to me, when you're going to use social media, you need to use it for wisely, because you could be spending hours a day on social media, but then that's not really drumming up business. But to use nextdoor.com, you're talking to the people who live near you. These are all potential clients. And so that's one of the social media things I use. There's another one out called alignable.com, and it connects you with the businesses in your area as well as businesses across the U.S. So I really focus on connecting with the businesses that are near me, because when I was in Maryland and started my business, I found out that what helped me to grow my business were the connections, the people that knew me, that had businesses. They knew me, and then they would refer me. So I say start local with your social media, and then Facebook, because you have friends all over the place on Facebook. It's good to put it out there and let them know what you're doing, but not everyone on your list gets. It's funny how Facebook does the feed, because if you have 4,000 friends, maybe only 60 people see what you put up there. I don't know how their matrix works. And then you can pay for ads on Facebook, but that's like an art in itself that, I'm starting to learn. And as you learn, it kind of changes. So, I say learn one thing at a time, but I would start with Nextdoor.com and Alignable. And there's meetup groups. You could start a meetup group for Reiki in your area and just gather the Reiki energy in your area. Schedule Reiki shares or discussions and just bring the Reiki energy together, collaborate.
Nice. Now, you have a lot of clients that around the world that you provide distance healing for. How do you get the distance clients?
So this was a pleasurable, unexpected benefit from writing articles. When I started writing the book, the internet became a place to blog. It became a place where people were looking for articles on all different topics. So I found a couple websites. I think one was called Natural Healing. I found a couple websites that wanted articles, and I just started writing Reiki articles. And then I started writing a series of articles about healing for eyes. And I was also writing for Reiki News magazine from the International Reiki Training Center. And so I was writing articles for them, and their magazine goes around the world. And of course, the internet, whatever you put on there, that people from all over the world have access to. And I think like around 2010, I wrote an article on Reiki for fertility. And I really didn't realize how big of an issue fertility and eye issues are globally. And so people would start sending me emails. Could you tell me about Reiki for eyes? Could you tell me more about how you work with women with fertility issues? And I'd go back and email them because people in the United States would just call me and we would talk. But people in India and England and Philippines and Canada, it's a long distance call. So the way we've managed now around that is they'll email me and we'll email a little bit, and then we'll set up a Zoom meeting because, Zoom isn't going to cost anybody a phone call. But really, the distant Reiki came out of writing articles on how Reiki has helped specific issues.
Yeah, and getting those published, that's amazing. And you love to write, so that's great. Now, another thing you talk about in your book is building an email list. How important is that, and how do you start doing that?
Wow, it is really important, because once someone is interested or shown an interest in Reiki, you want to keep connected with them. That's about any business is about communication. And so when you can get someone's email with their permission, you start building that list. In 93, I had a nonprofit spiritual center called the Beacon of Light Center. And so I started building the list then, and it was before they had like Constant Contact and Chipmunky to manage the emails. So I had built my list up to 7,500 people. but it would take me 2 weeks to send out emails because you were only allowed to put 90 emails in each email, and you could only send out maybe 6 a day of those, or else your internet provider would cut you off saying that you were spamming. So I would just collect emails at all the events I went to. I'd have a sign-up sheet and say, if you want to be on our newsletter list, send me your email. And I still have a quarterly newsletter that I do. It has Reiki articles. It has inspirational articles on spiritual topics. And so people now on my website, so what you want to do if you want to build your list, on any email you have a link under your name saying, if you'd like to sign up for my email list, click here, and it takes them to where they sign up. And you can offer freebies. Like for a while, I was offering a free meditation if they signed up. So when they would sign up, then they'd get a link to where they could download the meditation. I still may have that one up there. On your website, make sure you have several places, like at least once on every page, where people can join your email list. So if you offer something, that's good. They're more apt to sign up. But I have people that'll come and read what my services are, and then they just sign up. I guess they're curious, or they want to find out, what I have going on. But, a lot of people are saying, if you want the emails, you need to give something away to get it. So you could go on Facebook and say, hey, I got this meditation, or I've got an ebook that I'm giving away, sign up for it here. And they're signing up for your email list, and then they get this ebook that's going to solve some problem that they're having.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Now, what would you recommend, or is there a certain size of list? Like you should have, 10,000, at least 10,000 emails, or 50,000, or 1,000? What's the number?
Wow. Right now, because after I moved and that email list that I started back in the 90s, people changed their emails. So right now, I'd say my email list is a little bit under 3,000. And the bigger, the better, as long as you're using it to promote your business and to give good content. Because if you just keep promoting your business, people are going to unsubscribe. So giving them good content is very important, so that they feel like they're receiving something worth their effort of looking at. But the larger you grow your list, the more you're going to pay each month for that email subscriber that you're part of. Yeah, that service. And so if you're going to grow the list, make sure that you are using it to communicate with people that's turning it into business and into dollars, because you're paying a monthly fee to be part of MailChimp or Constant Contact.
Right. Well, good. Now, all of this can seem overwhelming to someone getting into business if maybe they don't have much business experience, or so how do you keep track of it all? How do you keep track of the flow of your day and make sure you've got everything covered?
That's really important, because all of a sudden when you become self-employed, people think you have a lot of free time. And so there's other people in your life that all of a sudden see that you're free. They'll want you to run errands for them, or watch their kids, or run somebody somewhere. And so it's important to have self-discipline, so that your free time is focused on building your business and not taking care of everyone else's business. So I have a calendar, and I have certain hours that I dedicate for sessions. And when I don't have sessions, I'm on my computer writing articles, posting on Facebook, preparing for events that I have coming up. But if I've been working too much, I'll also make sure that I put time on my calendar to go sit by a lake on top of a big rock somewhere as well. I need to feed me as well.
Right. Now, you mentioned also in your book about credentialing and certifications. What's maybe too little of certifications, and what's maybe too many certifications?
It depends on what you're doing. Like if you're doing Reiki, you put down your Reiki practitioner or a Reiki master. But, I've seen people with business cards and they'll have like the whole alphabet behind their name. And nobody knows what it is, like certified life coach or this or that. And they've got all these abbreviations and no one really knows what those things mean. So it's better to have those explained maybe in your bio, about Joe. All right, here's all the things that he has done or is into. It doesn't hurt to have a lot of certifications, but really your clients are not going to come back to you because you have all of them. They're going to come back to you because what you did had a positive effect on them. They feel better. Maybe you inspired them. You helped them shift. Because I know a lot of people will take, Reiki classes, and then they'll bounce from this class to that class and to all these other things. And then what happens is they don't focus on the Reiki to get depth in it. There's one thing that, because Arizona is a very woo-woo state, whereas everyone knows what Reiki is. And a lot of people have Reiki certification, and it's like something they collected. But to me, a real serious Reiki practitioner or Reiki master is one who has not only gotten the certificate, but they're using it. And Reiki is just becoming a permanent part of their energy and who they are and what they extend, whether they're doing Reiki or not. So, have fun collecting other certifications, but sometimes it's just more important to get depth with maybe one or two certifications versus, just collecting another and another and another.
Right. Piling them on top of each other. Now, one thing I think is important is like how to speak to clients, in person, what manner you should provide when someone comes into your Reiki studio for a treatment. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe some of the mistakes that people make and what are the things that are best to do in that scenario?
That's a great question because, creating great rapport is a foundation for any good business. And so one of the things I do for my new clients is explain a little bit about what Reiki is, so it takes the mystery out of it for them. Because sometimes they're referred from other people, they've heard of Reiki, but they don't know what it is, and they're a little bit skeptical. So I just sit them down and I tell them a little bit about me, and what Reiki is, but then also you need to be a really good listener. So, finding out why is your client here and what is the outcome that they're seeking. And one of the questions I'll ask them is, if this issue is resolved, what would the result be in your life? How would you feel? How would that look? So that way they know when they're there, and I know when they're there. So developing good rapport, it gets all the mysterious stuff out of the way that's in their mind over Reiki. And also it begins to build trust between you and your client. And when you have that trust, they can sit across from you and they can bare their soul and be fine with it. And as a Reiki practitioner, that's where you need to be able to be, because there's a lot of people that are out there hurting, and they want to talk about it and to tell you what they need healed, but they need to trust you. And the only way that they're going to trust you is by building that good rapport. And I know there's a lot of people who get into this that just let me do Reiki. And maybe they're introverts. However, if you're going to do this as a business and grow your business, you really need to know how to communicate with people. And in communication, a big part of that is being a good listener, not cutting the person off when they're talking, and just listening, and listening in a place of non-judgment. Because people will tell you all kinds of stuff, and I just have to be okay with whatever they're saying, and just be. The thing I like about doing this in my home is I've created this space with all this loving energy, and it's like a container of love, so that whatever upsetting that they're sharing, they're just part of this being fed. And that's all just part of good communication. And when they feel heard, and then they have a Reiki session, they're going to be great people who go out to refer to you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. That's great information. Now, you talk about growing the business, and so what are some of the main things about growing the business? What's most important, and maybe some mistakes to avoid in growing the business after you're established?
Okay, so growing the business on any level, whether starting, growing, or expanding, I find that if you can find key people in your community, offer them a free Reiki session. Have them come in, explain what Reiki is, offer them a free session, and guess what? There'll be wonderful referrals coming from them. One of the way I grew mine, because I had a lot of people from where I worked, but like I would talk to my chiropractor about what I did, and all of a sudden he became a client, and then he began referring to me his harder cases where people were kind of frozen, and he realized it was just not physical frozenness, it was emotional frozenness, and he started sending me clients. And then when I came to Arizona, I met some people in networking that were counselors, and I offered them Reiki sessions, and they became really good referrals as well. So you can save a lot on your marketing budget by identifying who some of the key people are that would be good referrals, and let them get to know you. It's just not like, here, get on my table. I'll share with them my history with Reiki and how this is my passion and my path. I think a big mistake people make is when they're spending all their time just going to every networking group they can, because networking is good, but you need to be in a network where people are looking for your service. Networking groups are people where they're looking for business as well. So, because I've talked to several friends who'd be like, oh, and Monday I've got this group, and Tuesday I've got this group. And I'm thinking, well, maybe a little social media, a little bit of writing articles, talking to people who you meet that are not in networking groups may be better marketing than just going to a lot of different groups.
Right. So doing various activities to bring in clients and referrals, not putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. That's great. So What are some what are some other things that people should consider before going into business, or things seem to really be exploding right now. People are opening up, being more open to Reiki and some of the other previously thought of as woo-woo sort of things. What are you experiencing there in a woo-woo state?
Well, it's funny because when I first moved here, everyone knew what Reiki was, and a lot of people had done it, but a lot of people weren't wanting Reiki because I don't know what their real image of what they thought Reiki was. And so, it was about educating people what it was and the results I've seen. But now with this explosion of social media and having articles online and people finding them, and just places like, Dr. Oz saying his wife's a Reiki master and how great it is, and more people talking about it on the media, all of a sudden there's been a shift in consciousness on the planet also, that a lot of people don't want drugs to be their solution. And so I'm getting emails from people who are saying, I want to try energy work before I have to go take a pill for this. And I think that's part of the beauty and growing of Reiki right now, and excitement around Reiki, is that it is a natural approach to healing. And people are looking for natural, and they don't want the pills, and they don't want the invasive surgeries that aren't going to guarantee a result. So they're more likely now to try to step into something new that doesn't have side effects, it doesn't hurt, and it doesn't cause harm. And so the first 3 months of this year, my business exploded, and it was exciting. It still is exciting, but I've never seen it explode like this before.
Wow, that's beautiful. Now, we have a couple of minutes left. What have you got coming up? Workshops, classes, programs?
Sure. I'm going to get my little list here so I don't leave anything out. I have in Scottsdale area of Arizona on May 12th, I have a Hara repair workshop, and that's part of the deeper repair work that I do in the energy field with these accidents and traumas kind of situations. And I have a Reiki 1 and 2 class in Scottsdale on April 28th and 29th. And I have a Reiki 1 and 2 class up here near Prescott on June 9th and 10th. And in September, I'm co-facilitating a Reiki retreat in Oracle, Arizona called Illumination Reiki Retreat Weekend, and 28th through 30th of September. And I'm also right now, it's still secret, but I guess it's not going to be as secret. My friend Carrie Blank and we did the first Global Reiki Summit this time last year in May last year. We're working together now on a new project that will be an online class, and it's going to be telling you how to use your Reiki skill set outside the box that you were given it to in. So you've got this beautiful Reiki energy. So let's look at how you can use it for trauma, how you could use it maybe to lose weight. So we've got 21 topics that we're going to be addressing and showing you new ways to use your Reiki. And we're going to announce it on May 1st. So maybe I can get back on here and talk more about it when it's not so secret. And it will be launched on June 10th. So I'm really excited about it because there's a lot of us who've been working in the field for a long time, and we take a lot of what we know for granted. But when Carrie and I put our heads together and said, we've got so much knowledge of what we've learned, how can we share it? So this will be a way that we'll share it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I really appreciate that. Yeah, looking forward, and we'll definitely we'll do a Facebook Live into Western Reiki Association and talk a little bit more about that program as it becomes less and less secret. I really appreciate you coming on the show. It was a beautiful show. You provided such good content. Again, Dawn's book. Huh?
Start, grow, and expand your holistic health business.
Yeah, absolutely. Available on Amazon and on your website as well, right?
Correct.
Real good. Thank you so much, Dawn. I appreciate you. Thank you for everyone tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific.
Thank you. It's been my honor. Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.